I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Education, February 26th meeting to order. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, section 2.4. Sue, can you give us a reiteration of the executive session motions?
Yes, the board met in executive session, to discuss the employment history of a particular person and collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law.
Thank you. I don't have much in terms of opening remarks. I just wanted to say that we're looking forward to hearing Dr. Champ's budget overview at this meeting. And I wanted to mention that a week from Saturday, right here in Alumni Hall it's March 7th, we're going to have our line-by-line budget review. If anybody in the public wants to join us, it will also be televised, and it begins at 9 o'clock in the morning. Gotten very efficient, but it's still a nice, long, informational day for all. So, anyhow, so I'll now move on to section 3, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the board minutes from February 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Sue wasn't.
Wasn't present.
Okay. Okay, administrative and committee reports. Do you want, is this where you're gonna do your update right now?
Actually, no, I was gonna do that later. I'm gonna do that down at 4.6.
Okay.
4.1, just a clerical change. It was titled Superintendent's Mid-Year Report. We did that last time, so it'll just be my normal superintendent's report.
Okay, perfect. So you're gonna do your update right now then? Okay.
Yes, just my.
I know, I was reading it from the paper, so that's why I got confused.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'll just do my
Okay.
regular report now, and then 4.6, I'll do the budget.
Perfect.
Okay.
Dr. Champ,
So,
take it away.
Good evening. Nice to see everybody. Lots of different things to report on today. I'll try to move quickly through them. We, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many that are so important. We are progressing very well through the process for the Pelham Memorial High School principal. We were very thankful to have a large group of stakeholders participate throughout the day yesterday in committee feedback interviews. So we had students and parents on one committee, a large committee of Teachers Association members, committee of administrators, and a committee of support staff. It's the first time that we've had a special group for them, recognizing that they have an incredibly important voice in the running of our school. So we're really thankful for them for the time they spent. We had 6 great candidates come. And we will be going through that, debriefing. The cabinet will be debriefing and inviting probably 3 of those candidates back for further discussion with us for a performance task. And then finalists will be moving to the board with the hope of interviewing with the board in March and an appointment by the end of March is our hope if we stay on track. So again, very, really excited to have throughout this whole process. We had, I think it was about 54 original applicants. We screened about 16, 17 candidates, and I think we all agreed it was the most diverse pool of candidates that we've ever had the experience of interviewing at that level. So I really believe our strategic plan is resonating with people. We're really, putting ourselves on the mark as valuing cultural competence and wanting to have a diverse staff. So that definitely resonated, the message got out. And we were really excited and pleased at that. And Steve, I'm sure, will be talking about in his report the upcoming diversity job fair that's happening this weekend. So I won't steal his thunder on that. But it was really exciting. So we're, again, really, really high caliber candidates and looking forward to that process continuing. I think on probably top of everyone's worry list right now is the ongoing health crisis. And of course, we have been monitoring this very actively. We've been in touch with the Department of Health. We've been monitoring the guidance coming out from the state, which, to be quite honest, is really not that much other than following normal flu protocols. So Jim's report, he's going to touch on some of the cleaning measures that we're adding as a result of this to be proactive. Julia will mention, again, just reiterate the health protocols that the health department, CDC, have recommended. Once further guidance comes, we will, of course, follow up with that guidance. We will be meeting with the administrative team early next week to talk about getting some of those plans in place on the educational side for some worst case scenarios, hoping that we don't need them. We always plan for the worst, hope for the best. And if people take common sense measures of prevention, Hopefully, we will not be in a situation of needing that. But I will add, just as an aside, I guess I got the reputation of not taking any snow days. We do still have 5 snow days in the bank. So if we get into a potential worst-case scenario, we do actually have some options. So there's a positive side to that. But seriously, it is very much on our radar, and thankfully, a lot of our professional groups, whether it's the communications group, superintendents, within the PPS realm, and even curriculum on the whole, how do you do learning for students when it's not at school. There's a lot of conversation going on amongst our professional groups. So we'll work together with our peer schools to come up with something that we believe, should we need, will meet the needs of our students while protecting them and keeping them safe in a reasonable manner. And I would add one more piece too, just as an extra precaution. We know, I think many people know there was a lot of people that traveled over the break, not just school students, but families. So for those that we knew of, we did have a trip to Italy. We did check in with all staff and students that went on that trip, and they are in fact symptom-free. So I think it's really important. I know there was a lot of rumors circulating about that. They're unfounded. All those students and staff have been symptom-free. And we'll continue to keep in touch with them and make sure that they follow appropriate protocols as needed. One quick construction update, and this may steal some of Jim's thunder. As the board knows, Hutchinson general contractor and all other contractors were approved in our recent meetings. So we finally now are nailing down a timeline, and actually we had our first excavator arrive on site yesterday, I believe. So we have a date now scheduled for a community meeting. So March 12th at 7 o'clock in the Hutchinson gym. We will plan to do the next of our community informational meetings. So we'll be hard mailing letters to the neighbors by the end of this week. So that seems to be the most effective way to make sure our neighbors are aware and able to come to those meetings. So we look forward to having them there, let them know timelines and next steps. Couple athletic things. I was very pleased to be able to go see the girls basketball team play. It was a hard-fought loss to Pearl River, but it was so nice to get to see them over the break. They really made us proud, and even though their season came to an end, we're incredibly proud of their play on the field. Of course, we have a big hockey game tomorrow night against Rye, so invite everybody to come out for that. Around the district, a couple special items that are worthy of note. The Kids Heart Challenge. The week before break, 4th and 5th graders across all 4 elementary schools combined their efforts to raise over $14,000 for the American Heart Association through the Kids Heart Challenge. I believe this used to be the jump rope for heart. That's how you may have known it in the past. Students collected donations and then met in their respective gyms to jump rope and participate in a variety of other activities and healthy activities. So special thanks to our physical education teachers and our PTAs who helped to organize this very successful event. Another successful one that we piloted at Colonial last year, and thanks to the PEF, we had the funding to expand, and Julia Chung has been working with the schools to prepare for this and with our PTAs. Building Bridges is coming to all 4 elementary schools. So over the next few weeks, all of our elementary schools will start their Building Bridges program, which raises awareness about disabilities by engaging guest speakers and offering interactive activities. As I said, it's piloted at Colonial, and the generousness of the PEF is helping us to launch it in all schools, and our goal is to sustain this long-term through Julia's budgeting for it and her work with the PTA. So we're hoping this becomes an annual event in our schools. And obviously it clearly ties in beautifully with our strategic plan goals of cultural competence, looking at ableism and abilities, and really helping our students to gain empathy and understanding and appreciation for those who are differently abled in our schools, in our communities. We have a 5th grade parent orientation coming up. It's a reminder that our second one will be held at 6:30 tomorrow night here in the middle school library. It's a great event to learn more about the transition to middle school for parents who didn't make it to the first transition meeting. Also tomorrow night, if you could slip away from orientation, or if you're not going to that, you can come to our faculty-student basketball game. Tickets are $5 with proceeds benefiting Operation Smile. The event is organized by our high school student association, so we would love to have people come and support them. And I can't end without, of course, the usual reading of our high school accomplishments by our incredible students. 4 Pelham Memorial High School students won awards at the 16th National Class Essay Contest. This Chinese essay contest is held annually by the Chinese Language Association of Secondary Elementary Schools. So we're proud of their work. Congratulations to the winners. Bonnie Wu won Silver Award, and Madison Cohen, Lin Huang, and Nadine Li Song won Honorable Mention. Pelham Science Research students competed in the 18th Annual Westchester Rockland Junior Science and Humanities Symposium on Saturday, February 8th. The WRJSHS is a sub-regional pre-qualifying event for the state competition in Albany. This competition provides 3 levels of participation: display boards, competitive posters, and PowerPoint speaker sessions. From the over 600 research papers that were submitted, Pelham had 12 seniors selected to present their research, which is a huge honor in and of itself to be selected. The following seniors were selected and then presented their research as a PowerPoint. We're incredibly proud of the time and work they put into making such exceptional presentations, and for our faculty who support and mentor them along the way. So the PowerPoint speakers who were selected: Emily Nakayama, Matthias Spunberg, Grace Liberatore, Pierce Upton, Lucas Glist, Peter Wee, Vedika Basavadia, I think that's better, Olivia Min, Catherine Tobner, S.J. O'Connor, Bernadette Russo, and Izzy Anderson. Congratulations to these students. Bernadette Russo was selected in the environmental category as a state finalist for her freshwater eutrophication, a profile of nutrient loading along the Upper Hutchinson River project. These are the names of their projects. So Vedika Basavatia was state semifinalist in neuroscience category, role of complement, this is a test for me, that's what this is.
You're doing great.
Role of complement component 3 in dendrite morphogenesis of adult-born hippocampal neurons. S.J. O'Connor, state semifinalist in environmental science, microplastic pollution in Great South Bay waters, a relation to wastewater output and current. Peter Wee, honorable mention in the medicine and health category for syntaxin 4, a potential target to combat obesity and aging. And then our poster board winners: Lance Brady had a first place in environmental science, seasonal impacts on the meteorological effects of solar eclipses. Elise McCarthy had a second place in medicine and health, developing a medicine for tracking red cell circulation post transfusion in sickle cell disease patients. Morgan McLean, second place in environmental, designing a testing and ideal catch basin filter prototype targeted towards microplastic removal, similar to SJ's. Anna Champagnier-Bowen and Quinn Monaghan-Morris received a first place in behavioral science, the effects of social media usage on anxiety disorders. That could be very relevant to the Wellness Committee's work. And Philip Duloc and Lynn Dvorkin, second place in the behavioral category for effectiveness of wellness intervention programs in teaching young children to cope with anxiety. Also one that could be very beneficial to our work. So congratulations to these students. The Science Research Fair is probably a great place to see some of these kids firsthand and speak to them.
Blows you away.
It really, really is.
The work.
Yes, so thank you. That ends my report for tonight.
Very good, thank you. So 4.2, Board of Education Committee reports. We just got back from break, but did I miss any committees? I know we have one tomorrow morning, so we'll report on that next time. 4.3 is Assistant Superintendent's update on authentic learning.
Sure, I have 3 quick updates. So as many of you know, we had a tri-state visit right before February break. We want to thank Dr. Callahan and his team for making sure that I think we were well prepared for the visit. And I know that Eileen and Jessica, you saw the culminating event, which was the consultancy, and there was, I think, some really good feedback from them and some good accolades for our programs. And we just received the first draft of their report, which I'm surprised came so quickly. But we'll be reviewing that in the next few days and over the weekend, just to kind of see if we need to kind of make any tweaks to it. And we'll be sharing that with the board as well. But it was, I think it was a very successful event. I think it was probably one of the best consultancies that I've seen or I've been part of over the past 25 years that I've been involved with Tri-State. So, And I think it had a lot to do with the district's commitment in science. I think it's been already here, and I think it was just kind of elevated with the number of teachers and administrators who really helped out in just preparing it. And also, of course, kids and the students are really talking about their experiences with the science program in the district. But again, you know, one thing we also have to remind everyone is that it is a journey, and there's always room for growth. But again, we want to thank Dr. Callahan for putting that together for us. And we want to thank now Dr. Thompson for workshops that began this afternoon and will also continue in May for our entire secondary social studies department, working with a group called Facing History and Ourselves. The training has been with about civil discourse and inclusive dialogue in the classroom. So I missed that one today, and I hope to go with the next one. So I think I'll ask Maria to just give us some more insight, and I can share it with the board as well in terms of how that experience went. But it does tie into the work with cultural competency, but also, you know, politics and what's happening out there in society, and just being able to talk civilly with each other and giving teachers the right tools to have that type of discussion in the classroom, or to manage it when things do, you know, come up. So we're very happy about that. And then lastly, as Dr. Champ mentioned, this Saturday is our Diversity Educator Recruitment Fair, us and about 30 other school districts. And we already have about 25, 30 interviews set up that we'll be meeting with a bunch of candidates in the openings that we do have for this year, doing some screening interviews. And then we'll be meeting with, I think, at least 500 other people going to be showing up in the big room, at Highlands Middle School in Jim's home district in White Plains. And it seems to be between 9 and 3 p.m. It'll be, I think, an exciting experience for us. And we'll get some lessons. We'll learn a lot of different things about how to do it possibly in the future. Maybe we can localize it also to have an event in this district in the future.
Thank you. And thank you for helping to spearhead that, because I think
Yeah,
being at the helm of that really proves our
Appreciate it.
interest in
Yes.
this.
And I think the region
effort.
they're hungry for it, to be honest with you, because everyone, as you can tell, I mean, many districts are interested in doing it and being, you know, participants. But it's kind of big, so we'll see how it goes. I'll share with everyone how it went.
I didn't get to read On Board yet, but there's an article. Did you see?
Yeah, I did.
About
There was a
this
recent one
topic?
about it.
I
Yeah.
have it on my table, so it's amazing how relevant those articles are to the work we're doing. So
Yes.
we're on target.
When did that come out?
Just this past week,
Just think-
and also an article about coronavirus. So, so informative. Okay, so 4.4, Assistant Superintendent's update on the whole child.
I don't have too much to report in terms of the whole child strategic goal, but I do want to reiterate that the district is in contact with the district's physician and monitoring all the guidance from CDC. And we also added some information from CDC in the informational materials on the website under the health category. So we have CDC Stop the Spread of Germs, what you need to know about coronavirus. I do want to talk a little bit about the district's guidelines regarding illnesses. If a child is who has a fever of greater than 100, they do need to stay home and be fever-free for at least 24 hours without any fever reducers. And we also do want to also remind parents that if a child is vomiting, we should probably take the same precaution, make sure that you're kind of watching and monitoring the child for at least 24 hours. And, certainly, in light of the current health concerns, we encourage parents to please just consult your doctor and make sure that your child's symptoms are nothing more than, what it may be. And lastly, I just want to remind everyone to just wash your hands with soap for at least 20 seconds. That's what CDC recommends. So at least 20 seconds.
You sing the ABCs, apparently it's long enough.
Yeah, and I would say too, and I forgot to mention, we are also, we had monitored attendance back when we were having some flu outbreak before, it was before the Martin Luther King holiday, and that subsided, but in light of this, we're starting to monitor again. And I think we have all of 2 diagnosed cases in the district at this point in time, and that's regular flu. There are no diagnosed cases of coronavirus in New York State or in the US, I don't believe. No,
No,
US,
it's
New York
not.
State.
New York, yeah.
Okay, just saw the
Not New
news
York
earlier.
State. Yep.
59 cases in the country, none in New York State.
Right.
So, but we will continue to monitor that as this progresses.
Thank you. 4.5 is Assistant Superintendent's update on finance and facilities.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. Quickly, this evening, Dr. Champ's going to just provide a nice overview of our budget and our version of March Madness for the next month. So a little lead up to the March 15th bracketology that we have going for us. On
Do you have
If
your own,
only.
like, Joe Luna? Are you like-
Friday morning, we're going to be meeting with Leah to kind of go over the budget book. We can certainly make sessions available to other board members if you'd like to spend some time understanding the budget book, going through it. If you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, please feel free to reach out to us. You'll see there's a lot of information in there. You may find a typo or two. We tried to take out as many as we can, but when you go to final print, that's when you find the last one. So just let us know and we'll make sure we take care of that. This evening, we have a transfer for the Foundations of Learning, as you see on the as part of our financial report. As Dr. Champ said, at Hutchinson's, the equipment has started to pull up. We had an excavator pull up, and the general contractor's trailer has arrived as well. We're just reminding our contractor and everyone else, we're going to use the front gate off of Lincoln. So there may be some deliveries for larger items if they can't get it into, with the hill, if they can't take that hill coming in off of Lincoln, they may have to do that. But again, we want to be mindful of the neighbors, and just driving by there today, saw some mud on the road because obviously a truck had gone out that back gate, and we did remind our construction manager, and we want to make sure we can maintain our commitments to our neighbors and be good neighbors through this process. Also this evening, we have a request to amend our agreement once again with Omni. We did that just a few months ago, or a few meetings ago. What we've done is there was a new product for the Roth 403B, which was made available. It's something that we can provide. It doesn't add additional expense to the school district for our employees as well. And this is an offering we'd like to make available as of July 1st. So just for the new year, another offering for employees, and like I said, no added cost, which is a nice number for the folks in the business office. Out-of-district transportation forms for folks who send their kids to private school. Those request forms are out right now. If you did not get a form, if you're not an out-of-district parent right now, a parent who sends their child out of district, the deadline is April 1st. So please remember to go ahead and fill out those forms. Even if you're not positive, please fill out a form, have one on file with the business office.
And what happens if the request comes in after the deadline?
So we're not obligated to provide transportation after that date, and we haven't in the past. So it's very important for folks to get those requests in. Last week with the Southern Westchester Business Officials Group, we had a really great meeting with a lot of the local state delegation. Amy Paulin was there, Assemblyman Otis, representative from State Senator Buckwald, Andrea Stewart-Cousins was there, Shelley Mayer, and David Carlucci's office. They were all there to hear about our questions, concerns, thoughts on the budget, and a real advocacy meeting. So we gave them plenty to talk about, and we loaded them up with some information and some data about foundation aid, expense-driven aid, and the impact of really what that's going to do to the school districts and the demands that have been placed on us with some of those mandates and the expenses that it drives, and the degree of the underfunding of that foundation aid that we see specifically in this district. And a lot of districts in the Westchester and the Long Island region do see that. As was mentioned before, we are taking proactive steps to prevent spread of virus, and it really mirrors a lot of what we did with the flu. That includes additional cleaning or disinfecting of our touch surfaces, which are doorknobs, handrails, tables, all of those types of things during the school day. We'll do some additional disinfecting of classrooms, nurse's office, and the building communal areas, gym room, weight rooms, all of those particular areas, because that's where we can get some of that spread. We'll do some deep cleanings on weekends when the folks are in, so we can take care of that. Actually, the weekends are good too. It's a good time to break the cycle. Time is important for any of these viruses to die. And then, as Julia said, remember frequent hand washing, cover your mouth when you're coughing, simple preventative measures, just like that. And I think that is all that I have. Thank you.
Good. Section 5, oh no, section 4.6, I keep jostling the
skip it.
most important thing around this agenda. 4.6 is the overview of the superintendent's budget proposal.
All right, well, thank you. I did just upload a copy of this attached to the agenda, so if anyone who's watching at home, or if the board refreshes your screen, you'll see it right on as an attachment now to the agenda. So we were getting the finishing touches put on it just today. First off, I want to thank, Jim and Jackie Vigil, our district treasurer, who have just put a mountain's worth of work into producing this document for you, and for the community. We all had the chance to meet with our internal auditor this week, and he works with many districts over many years and really commented on the thoroughness and the transparency and the level of detail that's provided in this budget. It really stands out to him as a top quality thing. So I want to, commend Jim and Jackie and their whole team for the work that they put into producing this for the board, and also for the administrative team who worked really hard to come in with reasonable, defendable, and strategic plan-focused requests within their budget. So I hope that that's what you find in it. Tonight's overview is very broad brushes. It's not going to go into significant detail. That's what our Saturday review will do. But we wanted to just give you some of the highlights that will be significant for the board to be aware of as we go through the process. So as I said, our budget goal from the board's goal and the district goal is to develop a responsible budget that manages the district's short and long-term finances in a way that balances the preservation of program, staffing, and operational efficiencies. And of course, what we always want to do is make sure that our resources are targeted towards achieving the goals of our strategic plan. So those are listed for you there as well. Of course, we're very familiar now in the areas of cultural competence, authentic learning, and whole child. And as we go through the budget in detail with the board on our Saturday review, you should be hearing recurring themes of connections to those items. The budget at a glance, these are the numbers that everybody's interested in. The total appropriations in this proposed budget are $77,370,000. Our expenses budget to budget increase is $2,440,000. And portion of that is operating budget, portion of that is related to capital. And then which then brings us to a projected allowable tax levy increase of 3.15%. We'll talk a little bit more about CPI and about the tax cap on an upcoming slide. This budget is proposing going to the full tax levy increase of 3.15. I believe that is below the increase that we had last year at our initial proposed budget as well. So that was a few tenths of percentage points higher. And of course, we do have the caveat. This is always fun for us because we're required to come out with a budget before we know all the pieces of the budget, but that's an iterative process the board is familiar with. So subject to state change, we usually get our final state aid runs on April 1st, so that will give us our final numbers there, and a couple other pieces. So as you review your budgets this week, you'll see the expenditure categories break down into these main categories, instruction being, of course, the largest. That's the core of our work. Benefits are related to staff. 80 to 85% of any school district staffing is people. So you're going to see the biggest amount of money in salary and benefits. General support is also very personnel-driven, but it is personnel that's not necessarily classroom or instructional personnel. So central office staff, buildings and grounds, anything that supports the work of the district. Interfund transfers, that's that kind of the mechanical piece of how we're using various pieces of reserve, how they're moving in and out. Transportation is its own special thing. As Jim and I like to say, we're on our fourth vendor in 3 years since we have both been here. So we have the pleasure of paying more for less service. But we are not alone. Over the break, I was actually visiting family in North Carolina, and they have countywide school districts. It was Wake County schools, and they were telling me the woes of their transportation. There was 2 special needs children, my brother-in-law and his wife, 2 special needs children, my nephews, and it was the same exact struggles that we are having. And it's everywhere. Not having staff, not having adequate staff, not being able to run buses. They don't know if the bus is coming in the like, it was a real challenge. So we're not alone, but we continue to persevere. And of course, in community services, which is our shared work with community recreation. So you'll see components of that in our budget as well. What is driving our budget increases this year tend to fall in these categories. Again, 80 to 85% of the budget is salaries and benefits, so there are many contractual pieces in there, or anticipated contractual. We are, as the board knows, in negotiations with the Teachers Association as well as CSEA. We've started those conversations as well. So there's some variables up in the air there. There's increases in pension costs through TRS and ERS, and increased health insurance costs, which is just an annual thing. It's not predictable, but we always have to adjust for those things each year and do our best to anticipate. We were able to continue our contingencies, maintained at approximately 2%, which we're pleased to do. That's a healthy level. That is matched by our allocation of reserves, so it gives us a more structurally balanced budget. We're continuing, though, at the same time to decrease that reliance on fund balance. We want to keep that at a level that we will be able to sustain in a healthy and balanced way going forward. What did help us significantly this year is we had 8 teacher retirements and 2 administrative retirements, which gives us a large amount of breakage on salary. So we thankfully are not in the situation we were last year, where there was a number of positions we eliminated through attrition. We had retirements and didn't fill. We're not in that position this year, thankfully. We're very happy that we're planning to fill those positions that were vacated. And I will put the caveat out there, though, we will be scrutinizing enrollments and needs to determine where exactly to fill those. Most of them will likely be similar to what is actually being vacated. And a guidance counselor at the high school retires, you need another guidance counselor at the high school. You know, a math teacher retires, you need another math teacher. So a lot of that, we don't anticipate a number of shifts this year as we did in the past budget year, but that really did help us to make sure that we could provide a budget that's within the tax cap. Year-to-year budget increase overall is 3.26, which we'll dig into a little further. One of the big drivers you'll see, and this was an anticipated one, was a decrease in state building aid. You'll recall last year we had a drop in aid of about $500,000 in building aid. We anticipated the remaining $500,000, and that was from the middle school bond project to drop off this year. That did in fact happen. We did have a slight uptick in building aid, though, thanks to the aid starting to flow on the locker room project. So that offset it a little bit. It wasn't quite as low as we had anticipated. And we'll talk about building aid. Was there a slide on the building aid bundling this time?
No.
In this one? Okay. So that's something to be continued. The governor is doing some interesting things with the budget, which the advocacy committee will be talking about tomorrow, bundling expense-driven aid. So it's hard to really get a clear picture of what our actual foundation aid is. The governor will beat his chest and say we had over a 6% increase in foundation aid. What it really was a 0.25% increase in foundation aid, but when they wrapped all of our expense-driven entitled aids into that, then he gets a 6 point, whatever it was. So we'll go further into that on budget day as well. But numbers tell the story that people want them to tell at times, and his story doesn't exactly match ours. Includes second phase of borrowing for the capital improvement bonds as well. So that's part of all those, the drop in building aid and the capital improvement borrowing are part of what is driving our exclusions that are outside of the cap, which is why we have a cap that is over the 1.81 CPI, as well as 2%. People still call it a 2% tax cap, which it is not. Major revenue categories that the board will see as they review, of course, property taxes, that's the largest, still in about the 80s. We fluctuate in the low 80s as to how much of our budget is supported by our homestead taxpayers. We also have changes the state and federal aid flows. You will see those represented. And again, I hit the major one there with a major drop in state aid. Miscellaneous receipts, we had some changes there. We have some increases thanks to the new sales tax in Westchester County. County Administrator Latimer was spot on with the amount that he projected that we would be expecting. So that was very positive. And of course, a use of appropriated fund balance, which there are various reserves that will there'll be ins and outs on those and different amounts included. Just a quick review on the tax cap. We do build our budget based on need, and we do aim to do it within the tax cap. We do not recommend any piercing of the cap at this point. The tax cap became permanent last year, and the way that it works, everyone is probably familiar. It's tax cap. It's a levy cap. It's not an overall cap. The tax levy cap is set at 2% increase or the CPI, whichever is lower, plus exclusions. This year, as I said, the CPI is under 2%. It's at 1.81. So that's our starting point. And then we add our growth factor and calculate the various exclusions. Once all that growth factor and exclusions are then calculated, that is what brings us up to the 3.15. And starting last year, since we were taking on new capital debt, we thought it important to continue as we speak to the community and the board to highlight which parts of that increase relate to operating budget and which relate to capital. So you see there, 2.2 of this is related to just the general operating budget specifically, whereas 0.95 of that is relating specifically to capital exclusions. And that is, again, the drop in aid as well as new borrowing. No,
Or drop of aid.
drop of aid.
And we're going to have Rick Gansey from Capital Markets Advisors come in mid-March to give us another update on the capital borrowing plan.
Okay, great. So you see where the 2.2 added to the 0.95 brings us to our 3.15. So some programmatic enhancements. This is not maybe as exciting as past budgets were, but we can't always be adding. And two, I would say, the board recalls as we went through our strategic plan, I think we really all had a sense of this strategic plan is about deepening the work, not adding, but deepening what we do. So that means continuing what to do, continuing to invest in doing what we do well. So we've continued to invest in professional development, putting some of that. We've been able to move many things out of various grants, out of some of Steve's grants. That's the Title I, II, and III, which provides more space for professional development to be funded through there. You'll see as we go through the detail on Saturday, some adjustments in Julia's that have, again, moved some staffing that needs to be long-term sustained by the district into general fund to also then free up the flexibility of her grant for more of the supplemental work. It's important that we do not use our grants to subsidize our normal. We have to, those are supplement, not supplant. We can't supplant district's responsibilities for staffing and program using our grants. We use them to supplement. So we took some, I think, important steps in that direction. Through that, though, we continue to invest in professional development for all of the different initiatives that are going on, IB. We continue with that work. DBT, responsive classroom, STEAM, literacy, civic discourse, as you just heard about from Dr. Garcia, cultural competence. So we're trying to really make sure that we're investing in sustainable professional development. One of the things that is in the budget now, and as we work through the staffing process, we will nail down if this is in fact viable, we hope that it is increasing our staff literacy developer position from half-time to full-time. Julie Lieberson is our current ELA literacy developer. She does it half-time and she does reading on the other half of her job. But on the math science side, we have Beth Finkelstein, Beth Finkelstein, who's full-time.
Correct.
So we wanted to have a complement to that to truly support our, and provide more capacity to support our teachers in-house. So that's our goal, is to make those both full-time positions.
And just one thing, so, they were really identified in the beginning when I first got here as like math stat developer, ELA stat developer, and it's sort of expanded, especially with, the need for more expansion in the STEAM areas and technology. So Beth has really kind of taken that on. So it's not just math, it's like math and science. And,
Right.
and also, we expect the same thing, let's say, with our literacy, full-time literacy stat developer would also blend also with social studies.
Yeah.
So that's just something to kind of keep in mind, that we're just not looking just to isolate it in one specific area.
Right.
The responsibilities have to be broad enough because of the resources that we do have.
Yep, so more to come on that as we work through the staffing. And, again, continuing keeping the class sizes within board guidelines, continued refresh of our learning devices at the secondary level in particular, but also that as we retire Chromebooks from the secondary level, we then are using them to supplement and increase the access to technology at the elementary level. So John Sabalos will talk about that refresh cycle when he reviews his budget with the board. One thing that's not specifically called out in the budget, but I had a brief conversation with Steve Luciana as we were finalizing things. We don't currently have a modified cheerleading team, and he believes within his budget, he's got the funding to create a modified cheerleading team, which provide better training for the kids with the goal of, certainly reinforcing and strengthening that program, which hopefully would lead to less injury at the varsity and more competitive skill at the varsity level. So I thought that was a nice addition, especially when it checks both boxes of safety and builds program. And continuing to, this is something that we're happy to, supporting the expansion of innovative flexible furnishings. We talked in the capital improvement plan, the 15-year plan, about building in funding to sustain this, and that was part of our promise to the PEF when they supported our grant. So as we had promised, we've budgeted in there, I think in total came into, we had a request for about $15,000 worth of equipment. We added 50 to that, so you'll see in the budget $65,000 this year, specifically budgeted to expand our flexible furnishings. So over time, that is our hope. And we've shifted, you remember last year, we've shifted to Dr. Garcia being the approver on that, so that any furniture we buy going forward will be done with the eye towards flexibility and expanding that initiative.
And that's K-12?
K-12.
K-6 for now.
K-12. K-12. Yep.
And the committee will determine where that furniture goes,
Committee will
like
help,
with the grant money?
yeah, help guide us,
Yeah.
right? It won't be done in a vacuum. It's,
Yeah.
and really the people, the teachers who are involved with the innovation committee, they're the ones who are, like, the ones who are committed, they're interested. It's not gonna be, we have to be very careful of just, not putting into areas which people aren't ready. So, and that's why it's really that the training with those teachers who don't have anything yet, but are really interested in learning and are engaged with it, are the ones who are really gonna help shepherd that through. And then we have to go out and recruit, as well. But that's a long-term, that's really kind of a long-term experience. And we are really hoping that once the spring comes around, when we have spring break and the initial PEF grant funding for furniture in those pilot classrooms will be set up, and the middle school library, the Colonial Library, that's gonna be really the first set, right? And what we learned from it, our goal was always, how and in what ways could it inform Hutchinson School, and what those classrooms look like.
Right.
So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
At least for me.
The kids are enjoying it,
Yes,
and the
they are.
teachers are enjoying it too. So I think that speaks to excitement beyond just you. Special education realm, and again, Julia will go through this in detail at our Saturday meeting, continuing to provide free and appropriate education, a lot of ins and outs based on student need, as we always do. We're continuing to support programs and putting funding where they are needed to best meet the needs of the students. In technology, again, John will speak to this, continuation of our Chromebook. Continuing replacement of smart boards and projectors. We're shifting more now towards interactive TVs in classrooms. That is definitely, the technology has evolved to such a degree that just makes more sense on a financial and a functionality basis, especially now that we've got tablets that are touchscreen tablets in the hands of teachers and students. So we're definitely experiencing a transformation again, to Steve's point. That very much is going to be informing our work at Hutchinson as well, what that building will be outfitted with when the time comes. Continuing to implement the managed IT platform. We made a big shift. It was a little bit of a risk because we didn't know what we were getting in for, but it has turned out to be a good shift. So we're continuing with that as a support model, and John will be able to speak to that. On the facility side, and John Condon will give us more detail on this as far as projects that are planned and different approaches that he's been taking that have gone into developing his budget, so continuing to maintain services at current level. We do have, again, we'll be budgeting for anticipated rent. We did purchase the house at 318 Pelhamdale last year. We're in the process of getting the approvals for that, as the board knows. At this point, it makes the most sense, we believe, to have the business office move into the house, given the division size of the particular suites and offices, which means the other 3 suites, curriculum, PPS, and superintendent, need a landing place. So we are currently in discussions on a lease for a property, hopefully to move in June 1st or July 1st, depending on how that, July 1st, of course. Jim would say August 1st if we could. Save another month's rent. But there is money.
While you're nice and cozy in the
Yep, they'll be baking cookies, and we'll just be walking around nomads with computers. No, but so this summer, we expect that This spring, we expect there to be transition as soon as the house is free, is renovated, is the building permits and all that are granted, work is done, the house will be moved into, and then the summer, we anticipate the remainder of us moving into new office space. There is rental budgeted in here. It's not as high as we had to budget last year, though. It's about $60,000 less than we had to budget last year, since we do have the house that allowed us, we need smaller square footage, therefore lower cost of rent. So more to come on that once we nail down some details on the lease. And continuing to work on classroom ceilings, LEDs, and use of internal staff to do the work that they are very talented at. And just as a reminder, this will close us out. I didn't quite make 9:15, but I'll make 9:30 end on my presentation. This is our budget schedule coming up. We've got our line by line, which again will be in this room. It'll be televised. We invite anyone who would like to come. And we go in detail through everything. So that's a very informative day. And then throughout the March and April and into May, we'll be having regular meetings and updates as the budget adjusts and changes. We have, I know, usually Steve Luciana, our athletic director, is usually involved in state-level competitions on our Saturday, so he's never able to be there, so he'll be coming to a board meeting to share his part of the budget, and anything else that we need to revisit as things evolve, of course, we'll be including that on our agendas. And then the big day, May 19th. Mark it on your calendars, tell your friends and family, come get registered if they're not already registered, and come plan to vote on the 19th right here in the main gym as usual. And of course, we have 2 school board election seats will be open then as well. Any questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Just on Saturday, if we could spend some time on the enrollment projections. I know we will.
Yeah.
But if we could, I'd be very interested to see what the last demographic study that was done prior to the bond. I think there were 2 done, actually.
Yes, we could bring both back and see how they mesh with current.
Thank you. That's
got
what I
it.
would like to see.
Not a problem. Yeah, and I think the one thing I would say, and this is very traditional, the current enrollments, we have the kindergarten enrollments. We anticipate at least one more section worth of students to enroll at Hutchinson in particular. That's
that right?
just been our traditional trend. Yeah.
So you think there would be 4? 'Cause
There
you-
definitely will be 3. That's why
already
we
had
already
it-
split it.
You already
into
split
3.
it to 3, okay.
It could stay at 3.
I see.
That's generally what it does. There was one year it
One year we
split to
had
4.
Yeah.
It was unusual to get it already enough to split to 3 at this point.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is a variable.
So right
And
now
Prospect
you're-
Hill is a little high too.
Right now, you're showing 3.
Yeah, we split it a little earlier than we would. We could technically have kept it at 2, but the reality is it's coming.
So you've
Because
already,
initial
you've already
was
built that
2.
into your budget, is what you're saying, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Prospect's looking like 3.
Prospect
Jim?
is, actually, I think Prospect is currently still at 2,
Yeah.
but it's pretty high.
But trending higher than you thought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's when we're keeping our eye on as a potential shift to 3. But again, that's still, we do have 2 contingent budgets, 2 contingent positions built in above and beyond what's in there on
Oh, do you?
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just another thing on the enrollment, could you bring that XYZ study? Do you remember the one that was done?
Developers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, now we've had 2 studies done by the developers too. So we have
Okay,
like,
I don't know how
I
many
think we have
studies we
like
have. They're
4
all over the place.
studies or so.
2 recent ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pre-bond,
The
there were
XYZ
more.
since the,
Right.
these are the development.
Yeah, those were
Yes.
independent studies done by the developer.
Well, they were looking at the potential impact of
Right.
new development,
Right.
which
Yeah.
wouldn't be captured in our demographic study necessarily.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
there's a whole tab on enrollment and class size per section. A7 is where you'll see everything.
First thing I look at.
Of course.
And so we
Yeah, we
won't
can
be getting the athletics overview on the 7th.
I don't believe so. I'll
Okay.
double check with Steve, but I think
bring
generally,
that
he
in
almost
for
always conflicts.
The 18th.
He
on the
typically
1st.
isn't there.
Right.
Yeah, whatever we
Bowling.
don't cover,
Bowling.
or if some.
We don't even
follow-up.
have a bowling team, but he is
No,
on the
he's-
state,
He is Mr. Bowling.
he
Yeah.
is. He's on the state level. bowling executive board. He helps to run at the state level, yeah. It's the state bowling competition. It always happens to coincide with the first Saturday in March.
I think he schedules it that day.
Yeah, he might have some influence, I don't know.
He is the czar after all.
So, but I believe everything else we should be able to cover that day.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, so section 5 is now policy monitoring and governance. We have 2 second readings. First one, 5.1 is policy 7131, education of homeless children and youth.
So this is the second reading, nothing has changed since the first, and the only thing that was substantive was the change of the name of the policy.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, 5.2 is policy 7522, concussion management.
Again, the second reading, and nothing substantive really changed here.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll plan on a third reading.
Yeah, I think we should go
At
with
the
third
next.
for these. And we have a meeting on Tuesday, so we'll probably have some more for the next meeting.
Maybe some first reading.
Right.
This is a small section for us right now. Cleared so many out of
We
the
are going.
pipeline last time. Okay, section 6 is financial reports and motions. I'm gonna consent 6.1 and 6.4 to include budget transfers. This budget schedule that Dr. Champ just presented, an agreement with Westchester County for voting machines and the budget transfers that Jim spoke about. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any-
Sorry, you said 6.1 to.
Through.
Through
6.4.
Through 6.4, okay.
Anybody have any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 6.5 is a motion to accept a donation. Do I have a motion?
Second.
So this is, the Pelham Union Free School District does hereby accept the monetary donation of $9,360 to support the Extended Academy After-School Program at the Pelham Middle School, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, the Pelham Civic Association. Very nice. I know they've had a lot of generosity to this program
Yes,
in years
very much
past.
so.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, section 7, I'm gonna consent 7.1 to
7.2?
7.2. I'm used to like a 7.3 or a 7.4. These are superintendent's personnel recommendations. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Anything anybody wants to add?
Just we have a additional 6 assignment recommendation, and that was due to, I think, a special ed class,
Yeah, we
An
anticipated this
ICT.
back at the beginning of the year.
a writing seminar
Yeah.
class.
And we do not yet have a full-time nurse for Siwanoy. We're having someone retire at the end of March, but we are still looking. We thought we had somebody and they slipped away. But we did have an opportunity to bring another part-time availability school nurse and recommended appointment of 2 school monitors. They're gonna help us with lunch at Hutchinson is where we're looking to bring them in right now. It's where we have the greatest need.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 8, People Personnel Services, we have Schedule D. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 9, New Business. Does anybody have any new business? Okay. Section 10, Communications and Comments from the Public. Section 11.
Madam President, would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions about that or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
That was quick.
You can't wait to.